When we're talking about these additives here that are going into these foods, how are they getting approved?
You can't make this up, Dr. Phil. In the United States right now, we have self-policing of food ingredients. It's actually put the ingredient in, no questions asked, and we'll take it out later if it proves to be harmful. It's called the GRAS standards. This is a evil misinterpretation of laws from the 1950s. No law says that food companies could do this. It's been misinterpreted, and now those 10,000 ingredients I mentioned are self-policed in. You can add an ingredient into U.S. food as a U.S. food company without proving that it's not harmful. Every other country in the world has the opposite. You have to prove that it's an okay ingredient before adding it in. That's why in the United States, we talked a lot about food coloring. Food coloring is crude oil. That's what Red 40 is, all these food. It's totally unnecessary, and it's absolutely tied to neurological issues, ADHD. Those still are allowed in our foods. So we have self-policing, which is something Bobby Kennedy's talked a lot about. One other thing I'll just tell you, Dr. Phil, the lobbyists are reaching out to me. They're talking to Bobby. They're saying behind closed doors, you know, we agree with you, kids are getting too sick, but this is gonna really hurt the economy if we change the medical system. They're literally saying that it's gonna hurt the economy to stand up for kids.
Yeah, that is offensive. I mean, it's absolutely offensive that these people are saying, I know this is making kids sick, but we're talking about profits here. We're talking about profits here. And that is absolutely disgusting. You've talked about the fact that they've established two big lies in healthcare. One is that Americans are lazy and want to be sick, and the reasons that they're getting sick are complicated and hard to change. And those are lies.
Does anyone here want to be sick or want your kids to be sick?
I mean, clearly.
I've yet to meet an American who wants their kids to be sick, but we're committing almost genocide on our kids with what's happening with metabolic conditions. And again, it's vital, personal responsibility is vital, but there's a systemic thing happening, and the medical system is gaslighting us by saying it's your fault. My mom, who died of cancer after having 5 other comorbidities, being on 5 pills, she wanted to meet her grandchild, my son. She wasn't able to meet him. Everyone wants to be around and doesn't want to die. So I think this nefarious lie that it's your fault is a real problem, and we need to obviously make improvements in our own life, but support this important bipartisan spiritual thing that's happening in the country. I think we can all feel this Make America Healthy Again. We can do this. We have the ability, Dr. Phil, in this country to stop poisoning our kids. We have that ability, and we can do this very quickly.
And this can happen right now.
So quickly.
And it can have results in this generation. This isn't something that 50 years from now we can say, boy, we're glad we did that. This can have an effect right now.
You can change your metabolic health so quickly. You can change your weight, your cholesterol, your blood pressure, the core biomarkers that are related to 9 of the 10 top killers that we mentioned, diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver disease, all the related metabolic conditions. We can have a national effort. It should have happened during COVID, which was a warning sign. We died 16% of overall COVID deaths, 4% of the population. COVID was a warning sign. Our immune systems are very weak in the United States. But with Bobby Kennedy, President Trump, a bipartisan coalition, we can actually harden up a little bit, talk about how we can make these changes quickly. And we've got a plan to do it.
When you do independent studies that aren't funded by, bought out by, influenced by funding from someone that has a stake in the outcome, independent studies conclude clearly that ultra-processed foods harm children. This is science. It's not a matter of opinion or, it's not a close call. It's a close call. This is not a close call. If we stop feeding this to our children will get healthier and they will do it quickly. It will begin to change. Now, coming up, fitness expert Jillian Michaels is going to join the conversation. She got a standing ovation after testifying to Congress, calling our food epidemic an extinction-level event. We'll hear what she has to say next.
The American people need help. Please be the change. Thank you.
Poor sleep impacts productivity, focus, and energy, making it difficult to tackle daily tasks effectively. Tossing and turning through the night leaves many feeling drained and unmotivated. Beam's Dream Powder offers a solution. This science-backed healthy nighttime blend is clinically shown to improve sleep, helping users fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up refreshed without grogginess. Dream combines powerful, all-natural ingredients like reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin, creating a blend designed for consistent, restful nights. It has become an essential part of nightly routines for those seeking better sleep. The ultimate sleep refresh for the new year. Try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder and get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil for up to 40% off. We've been discussing the chronic disease epidemic that is affecting our children in the U.S. Now, fitness expert, nutritionist, and health advocate Jillian Michaels says having children changed her life, and she has devoted her expertise and her time to fighting for the health of all children in America.
I have even watched parents forced to suffer the unthinkable loss of their adult children. There are not words to express the sadness I have felt and the fury, knowing that they were literally sacrificed at the altar of unchecked corporate greed. Most Americans are simply too financially strained, psychologically drained, and physically addicted to break free without a systemic intervention. Attempting to combat the status quo and the powers that be is beyond swimming upstream. It is like trying to push a rampaging river that's infested with piranhas. After years of trying to turn the tide, I submit that the powers that be are simply too powerful for us to take on alone. I implore the people here that shape the policy to take a stand. The buck must stop with you, because if this current trend is allowed to persist, the stakes will be untenable. We are in the middle of an extinction level event. The American people need help. They need heroes. And people of Washington, your constituents chose you to be their champion. Please be the change. Thank you.
Jillian.
Hi, Dr. Phil.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Hi, Callie.
Hey, Jillian.
Jillian, it hadn't been long since we've talked about some of this stuff, and it just doesn't go away. We've got to make changes here, and you're very serious about all of this. And I want to start out talking about how big farming is involved in children's chronic illness epidemic. What's going on here?
Honestly, Dr. Phil, this is where it all begins. So Callie mentioned subsidies, and I would say Big Ag has received about $500 billion in subsidies from 95 to 2022. So we're paying for this. And what they're doing, what the lobbyists are doing, is gaming the policies. They fund the research, right? They shape the policy. So they took something from back in 1933 and they shaped it into what's today called the Farm Bill. And that means that that $500 billion goes to grow genetically engineered monoculture crops soaked in their chemicals, which are historically linked, by the way, to chemical warfare like Agent Orange. You can't make this stuff up. And then they're tasked, the USDA is tasked with selling this surplus of calories through something called the Agricultural Marketing Service, right? And then they shape the food guidelines through the food pyramid, and they sell these cheap calories to the big food manufacturers who tinker with it some more. And they have a team of multidisciplinary scientists to tackle this, from behavioral psychologists to chemists to neuroscientists. And ultimately what's happening is you have a loaded gun pointed at your kids that you're paying for with your tax dollars, and it's all designed to encourage addiction and overconsumption. It's completely void of nutrients and completely filled with chemicals.
This is something that you don't hear about, you don't read about, people don't talk about this. This just happens, and it winds up in front of our kids. And Jillian, you're mostly known for your expertise in fitness, but now you're advocating for children's health and doing it at a federal level. What got your focus turned towards this issue? Why does this mean so much to you?
To be totally honest, Dr. Phil, this is something that people have been advocating for decades. It goes back to Marion Nestle, Maria Rodale, Michael Pollan. People have been trying to create change, but it's been falling on deaf ears, so much so that everyone kind of gave up and started asking for the bare minimum of step goals and like, hey, could you maybe just give up sodas? Until Callie, and I'm not just saying this, and I remember sitting with him and I was almost in tears one day, and he's like, don't give up hope. I have a plan. I have a plan. And I was like, okay, Cal, sure you do. And he does have a plan, and he has essentially weaponized health advocates like myself so that we can get our voices heard. We can get on platforms like yours, and he really is the mastermind behind this. I have to give him the credit. He's brilliant, fabulous human, and so is his sister.
Struggling with foot, knee, or back pain? G-Defy shoes can change your life. G-Defy shoes are FTC approved to relieve pain caused by weight-bearing activities like walking, running, or prolonged standing. G-Defy absorbs harmful shock and returns energy to each step. This means better body alignment and improved biomechanics. Translation? Freedom to do what you love pain-free. G-Defy shoes have your back. Literally. They're a game changer for seniors and veterans who deserve comfort and support. Here's the deal. You can try G-Defy risk-free with a 60-day trial. And right now, listeners of this podcast get an exclusive offer, 50% off orders of $120 or more. Just text Dr. Phil to 91888. That's right. Half off shoes designed to improve your quality of life. So take control of your life. Text Dr. Phil to 91888 or visit gdefy.com today. It's time to feel good again because you deserve it. Kelly, we are talking major money here from big power players with industry and lobbyists. What's it going to take to change the incentives?
This is what I hear consistently when I meet with members of Congress and senators behind closed doors. This big edifice of the pharma industrial complex and the food industrial complex, they're paper tigers, and they can be defeated if we join our voices together. That's what they're scared of. The reason we haven't been hearing about it is because the corporate media is paid for by pharma. They're the #1 donator, giver of money to mainstream news, 50% of TV news.
Right.
The key change is independent voices like you, like Jillian, who has one of the best and most popular podcasts in the country. And what was being talked about on the podcast we're all listening to, Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, all the way down, they're talking about this issue because everyone here is concerned about their child's health. The biggest books in the country, the biggest podcasts in the country, where when people are left to their own devices, they're trying to figure out how to be healthier and how to get their kids healthier. So this shift to independent media, independent voices, what you've been leading, is a really societally, historically important moment, and that's what changed in this election and really empowered leaders, and it's going to continue to empower leaders.
See, I have a strong belief that you know what Merit TV is all about. We're about talking to the heartland. We're about talking to the parents, the people, the grandparents that have children and grandchildren that are saying, look, I'm not going to just passively put up with this anymore. Give me the facts and I'll start making noise. And that's what we're wanting to do, is give people the facts. If they know that their tax dollars are paying for this to happen, for these things to get approved, for this stuff to just be sliding by, they can fire the people that are doing this. And that's what you need to do. You need to say, look, this was a privilege for you to be in these positions, and if you're going to abuse them, we're going to kick your ass to the curb. Well, that's what's going to happen.
That's right. The courage is contagious. That incredible Senate testimony that you saw, it was Senator Ron Johnson, and he was inspired by Bobby Kennedy and the independent media, and he invited people like Jillian to come in there and eviscerate the Senate itself and the institutions that fund the Senate. And that was a really brave move on his part, and that's spreading. We just have to keep optimistic, have to keep this up.
And it's not all one thing. Jillian, you believe in exercise, you believe in people taking control of their own life. That's still very important, correct?
Dr. Phil, taking agency is a piece of it, yes. Advocacy and activism is another piece. But the reality is that these guys, they fund the research, they shape the policy, they control the narrative, they engineer the environment, they're negotiating contracts for food at your kids' schools, for SNAP, for the food in your hospitals. They engineer that environment so you can't even escape their food, and then they manipulate consumer behavior. So this is something that we're going to have to fight on a myriad of fronts. And yes, agency is absolutely a part of it. But 74% of Americans are overweight and obese, and it is not because they're lazy or stupid. It's because this system is rigged on every level against them in the ways that we're telling you right now.
Yeah, and if the system's rigged, then you got to fight back.
Yes, sir.
All right. Coming up, we're going to talk to a doctor who says the first line of defense in fighting disease should be food, not medical treatments, medication, and pills. She's going to join us and tell us what we eat could reverse disease. That's next. We'll be right back. Doctor, you say the standard American diet isn't just scientifically wrong, it's absolutely dangerous, correct? $36 trillion. That is the U.S. debt, and it gets deeper and deeper by the day. Our debt has never been higher, nor have the stakes. The government is looking to slash the federal budget by $2 trillion, and no one knows what that will mean for your job, savings, and future. I've seen a lot in my time, and there's one thing I know for sure. You need to prepare before it's too late. I trust Preserve Gold to help protect my wealth, and I strongly urge you to do the same. They are the only precious metals firm I trust and recommend to my family, friends, and audience, and they have a special offer just for you. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue throughout 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 today. Well, we're joined by Dr. Kate Shanahan. She lists the late Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, Aaron Judge as some of her superstar patients. To these athletes, their body and what they put in it is of the utmost importance, which it should be to all of us. We need to put as much focus on what we're feeding America's children as these athletes do with their body. Dr. Shanahan is here to share those secrets. Doctor, you say the standard American diet isn't just scientifically wrong, it's absolutely dangerous, correct?
Yes, it is absolutely morally wrong as well. And I say this not lightly. I say this because American doctors were fed misinformation about fats way back in the 1940s. And ever since then, the fats that we've been eating have been vegetable seed oils, which are industrial products that never existed before the industrial era. And today, they make up 30% of your calories if you're eating like the average American. And that was true for the athletes.
Define seed oils.
That's a very important question because there really is no correct term to describe these. So I had to create a term called the Hateful Eight. There's 3 C's: corn, canola, cottonseed, 3 S's: soy, sunflower, safflower, And those are the ones that everybody should memorize because they're in 90% of the foods in our grocery stores.
So if people go home and they've got a big thing there of canola oil, bad idea.
Terrible idea. You don't want to use it for anything. Canola oil originally was used as machine oil in Canada during World War II. That is why it was invented, because in World War II, they needed a lot of machine oil, so they grew some. And then at the end of the war, they said, gee whiz, what do we do with all these fields? These farmers were already growing this stuff. Oh, I know, let's just feed it to people.
All right, so canola oil they were using to make a tank run, and now we're eating it. That's what you're telling us.
Yes, that is exactly right. It sounds bizarre, but what's even more bizarre is that American cardiologists believe canola oil is the solution to heart disease. They believe that soy oil is healthier than butter. Now, we've all heard that butter causes heart attacks, but this is part of that lie that we have been sold. Doctors, too. We've all been fed the same lie about fats. And that was when our health started to go off the rails, because in the 1940s was when the first dribbles of these oils started replacing the healthy fats that we'd been eating. When I say we, I mean Americans, humans, had been eating forever.
So what do you cook with when you need oil?
Well, I have my favorite five: olive oil, coconut, peanut oil, and sesame oil, in addition to butter. Butter is hands down my favorite. And you can use it for just about anything. You can use it for frying, you can use it for baking, you can use it for basting. And if you don't like butter, you can use the old-fashioned fats like tallow and lard, which almost sound like dirty words these days because we've so associated animal fat with heart attacks. But that is what we need to return to.
Well, who doesn't like butter? That's an easy switch there, right? But most people don't know this. This is a brainwash thing that people have been fed this misinformation.
It's very deliberate brainwashing. You look at the donors to the American Heart Association, which set these standards. They took money decades ago from Crisco, the first kind of seed oil. They're taking money, millions and millions of dollars from ultra-processed food makers. There's not a big lobbying group for broccoli or grass-fed beef or butter, right? It's all marketing donations and contributions from processed food companies.